Hi everyone. I wish I could say that this was going to be a positive video for me to make, but the subject of abortion came up and it really made me think about my own situation as a targeted individual, as a woman, as a young woman who got pregnant once upon a time. And I wanted to share, as a targeted individual and as a woman, my thoughts on abortion. Now, what I'm noticing from the progressive side of things is that once again, they've fallen into the trap of over-intellectualizing and over-analyzing why abortion should be safe and legal. Like just really just saying, oh, it's a fetus. Oh, a fetus is essentially a parasite that draws from the mother. Not true, because both the fetus and the mother are feeding each other at the same time. It's not just that the fetus is actually just drawing from the mother. There are also qualities within the fetus that are going back to the mother as well. There's a feedback loop going on when the woman is pregnant. So people on the progressive side are just saying, you know, it's a bunch of cells. The fetus is a parasite and therefore it's not a life. First of all, a fetus within the mother's womb is a life. It is a life, whether we like it or not. Because if it's not, then what is the point in caring about its development once it's in your womb? What is the point in having these conversations about how remote weapon technology can affect a fetus when it's in the womb? What is the point of having that conversation? What is the point of having the conversation of what electromagnetic frequencies do to a child in the womb? What is the point of having these discussions if we're not going to admit that, yes, a fetus is a life? It's a developing life, but it's a life. So people on the progressive side splitting hairs about why abortion should be safe and legal, for me, it just weakens their argument. It just weakens their argument when they will not call a fetus what it is. It is a life, okay? At the same time, I still believe that legal abortion should be an option for women. Why? Because it is ultimately the woman who is hosting the fetus. It is the woman's health that is affected. And if the woman's health and the woman's life are both affected, it also affects her ability to bring other life into the world in the future. So yes, I still believe that safe and legal abortion should absolutely be an option. That is not a choice that should be taken away from women at all. And I say that fully knowing that a fetus is a life. It is a life, but not all life is meant to be here. Some lives have to go home before they can come into this world. And a lot of the times it's for good reason as well. Let me take it back to my story. At about 18 or 19 years old, I got pregnant by somebody. And the conception was wrong. The father was wrong. Everything was wrong. So when this fetus was in my womb, by the time this little girl was in my womb, there were all sorts of reasons as to why she was better off not being born than, hi Brian, there were more reasons for me to believe why she should not be born than why she should be born. One of the reasons being that it wasn't because of the father's failure to be a decent human being. It wasn't to do with any of that. It was to do with the fact that I had failed her. And if I'd have given birth to her, I would have continued to fail her. Because at the time I didn't know I was a targeted individual. I had abuse coming at me from all sides, both in my home life, amongst my friends, and amongst my so-called lovers. I was being abused, from all sides. I wasn't handling it well. So that is the type of world that my baby girl, the fruit of my womb, would have come into. And even though at first somebody else had to point out to me, maybe she's better off not being here, and that person ultimately encouraged me to have the abortion for racist reasons, my thing was this: I can't bring this girl into the world to fail her more. That was my reason for terminating her at 4 months. There's not a day that goes by where I don't think about her. There's not a day that goes by where I don't wonder what kind of young lady she would have been now. What kind of daughter would I have raised her to be? There's not a day that goes by where I don't think about it. And yet it was the right choice. Why? Again, it's not just because of the father. It's not even just because of me and the way that I failed the child. It was because at the time I was a targeted individual and I didn't know. So on top of the illnesses that that child already had, right? Because the child had problems in the womb. On top of that, she would have been a targeted individual as well, which means there would have been remote torture on that fetus at the same time I was going through what I was going through with my health. So that would have happened at the same time. And then on top of that, I have to think about the circumstances of that child's birth. Now, I'm not as bad as my other abusers, I get that, but the amount of degrading things that I had done to myself and that other people had done to me, that child would have come into the world scandalized with a mother like me and with a father like that. That child would have come into the world scandalized. That's the first thing. Second of all, as a targeted individual, that child would have had two options. Either she would be a targeted individual like me. Actually, no, she wouldn't have got that option. She would have been born a targeted individual, and she would have had all the harrowing experiences at school that I had. She would have had all the remote weaponry being fired at her. She would have had all these problems on top of a mother that was badly abused and wasn't handling it well. On top of a father that was a degenerate and most likely a fucking handler. All right? So she would have had to deal with all of these things on top of being a targeted individual. So she would have been born a targeted individual. She wouldn't have had a fucking choice, because the way targeting works, it's intergenerational. She would never have had that option if I'd have given birth to that child. She would have been a TI from birth. She would have been a TI in her marrow because she would have been remotely attacked in the fucking womb. So that child would have had no chance. And then on top of that, on top of being a targeted individual coming out of the womb, when she was old enough, she would have been given two options. Is either you're going to be loyal to a mother that you're ashamed of, loyal to a mother that would most likely have mistreated you, loyal to a mother that chose a degenerate for a father for you, or you can join us and become a gang stalker. Now, if I would have raised my child with any type of sense, she would have chosen the second option. Betrayed me, and not only betrayed me, but betrayed her entire country and betrayed any future children she would have had. Because once you're a gang stalker, you are helping to orchestrate or become the architect for various political problems coming into the world. You're responsible for far-right racism. You're going to be responsible for Nazism coming back. You're going to be responsible for child trafficking. You're going to be responsible for the trafficking of vulnerable individuals. You're going to be responsible for genocide. There are so many things as a gang stalking individual that you're going to be responsible for. And not only that, you will never be able to get out of it, even when you successfully kill your target. This is not going to be for life. This is going to be throughout your bloodline. She would have reaped it too. This is exactly what I'm saying. Brian's spot on. She would have reaped it too. Her children and her children's children would have suffered the consequences for everything that she did, for the choices that she made. This is exactly what would have happened if I'd have become a mother, if legal safe abortion wouldn't have been an option for me. This is the future that the child would have walked into. There's no way the child would have been like me. There's no way. Because when I was younger, nobody in their right mind would want to be like me. But I get reminders every single day that I made the right choice. If it's not TI mothers who are constantly having to battle social services for their children not to be trafficked by their abusers, if it's not TI mothers having to battle their own governments to not have their children raped and tortured and trafficked, then it's gang stalker mothers setting themselves and their children up to reap the so-called rewards of being complicit in genocide and not being able to say anything. And from the time I had that abortion, I have been met with mirror images of the kind of mother that I potentially would have turned into. Natalie Lane, my dad's neighbor, is a mother. And the shit that she continues to do to justify her bullshit on behalf of her kids, that is potentially a type of mother I could have turned into. Another neighbor before her, can't remember her name, Vanessa something. As a mother, that is somebody I could have turned into too. Somebody hardworking, but ultimately ruthless, selfish, and narrow-minded. I could have turned into those people. Hell, I could have turned into one bitch that I knew from school. It wasn't enough for her that she humiliated me for no reason, or well, not for no reason. It wasn't enough that she bullied me in front of everybody and then tried to act like she was my friend in private. As a mother, now she was joining the gang stalking ranks. And I bet you any money she used her child as an excuse. So already I've got 3 examples of mothers that have joined gang stalking that have been mirror image of exactly what I wanted to be and exactly who I could have been. Trash. Traitorous, trafficking, cowardly, lying, trash. And those are just 3 examples. The 4th example came in Willesden Green. A bullying asshole who couldn't control her fucking autism crash outs. A bullying asshole who was an emotionally weak loser, couldn't hold on to any of her 5 kids. Wrapped up in the same fucking, truth. A fucking loser. Couldn't hold on to any of her 5 kids. Had been arrested, joined gang stalking, used her kids as an excuse, even though she couldn't hold on to none of them. That's what the fuck she did. That's another mirror image of what I would have been like as a mother. Another mirror image of what I would have been like as a mother was that Romanian family that lived next door to me. Another mother, another piece of shit, another coward, another irrational, emotionally dysregulated cunt who used torture to win arguments. Used remote torture and unlawful surveillance to win arguments. Another mirror image. Then I move out of there and I move into a place in Cricklewood. Another mirror image. I didn't even know. I didn't even know this stupid cunt was pregnant. I didn't even know, right? But that turned out to be another mirror image. I can't mention her name on here. That would have turned out to be a mirror image of the type of mother that I would have been if I was in her shoes. Fast forward to here. Fast forward to here. I can't even remember the name of the road now. I'm getting my roads mixed up. So fast forward to here. Fast forward to here. A whole family of cunts disrespecting me, terrorizing me, spreading rumors about me, getting her children involved. Another mirror image of who I would have been as a mother. Once again, selfish, cowardly, lying trash. Who weaponized her motherhood, weaponized her children to not only be traitors to her own country, but to create situations where her descendants would suffer the consequences of her behavior, because her behavior was literally facilitating and still is facilitating fucking genocide. And she got her kids involved. And once you get your kids involved, you ain't getting out of this shit. You and your bloodline are not getting out of it at all. You want me to bear the fruit of my womb into this world, to either be cattle or a pet. No. Let me rephrase that. Without legal and safe abortions, you would have wanted me to bear something out of my womb that either would have been cattle or a slave. That would have facilitated generational acts of genocide, generational poverty, generational disease, generational fascism. You want me to bear something from my womb that would have facilitated that? Are you fucking crazy? No, there is no way I'm going to have any child of mine coming from my womb that has either being a TI or being a fucking gang stalker as an option. There is no way. So this is what I do. In these little videos that I make, in these little online rants, I'm going to let him know that I've acknowledged him, because Brian might have left because he thought I wasn't acknowledging him. Let me just let him know. Let him know I hear him, I see him. You know what I mean? Because sometimes I get carried away and I don't pay attention to the people in the live. So let me just let him know. Let him know that I see him and appreciate him. So there is no way that I'm bringing any fruit of my fucking womb into this world to be a targeted individual that will be cattle for the rest of her life, or to be a gang stalker that will be a cowardly, lying, serpentine, twisted, psychotic slave for the rest of her life. So instead, I fight for a world where, through my online rants, like I said before, I fight for a world where parents do not have to make that choice. I fight for a world where whole bloodlines do not have to be slaves for the state or cattle for the state. I fight for a world where people are not judged by their arbitrary differences, because it's arbitrary differences that facilitate gang stalking and facilitate genocide. I fight for a world where people don't have to do any of this. Let me not bring children into the world. Instead, let me fight for a world in which they can exist happily and peacefully. That's why tackling this gang stalking stuff is so important. It's literally the nucleus of everything that we're experiencing right now. And I'm not winning. And as long as I'm not winning, I'm not bringing no children here. I wouldn't even wish that on adopted children or children that I would have adopted. I wouldn't even wish that on them. Absolutely not. Absolutely fucking not. Why? So let me fight for a world where people don't have to make that choice. I've got descendants. I don't need kids. Instead, I can fight for a world where descendants of mine, even if they don't come from my womb, do not have to make those choices. That's what the fuck I'm fighting for. And unfortunately for everybody, legal, safe abortions for women as an option is part of that, is part of that progress. Legal, safe abortions are extremely important, especially for victims of rape, trafficking, in my case, victims of being targeted individuals, potentially all their lives and intergenerationally. It's very important that abortion rights are maintained. Why? Because the far right love their breeding farms. During slavery, the most profitable areas were not cotton fields. They weren't livestock farms. They weren't sugarcane fields. You know what the most profitable sector of slavery was? Breeding farms. And not breeding farms of like cows or sheep, breeding farms of humans, breeding farms of black bodies. Gang stalking is a breeding farm. Anything involving social control is a breeding farm. The right wing love a breeding farm. The most profitable resource on this planet will always be people. And the truth of the matter is that people who are poor, they're more likely to have more kids. Studied this in geography. Geography was a part of humanities at high school. We all studied that people who are poor are more likely to have more kids, because more kids, even though it means more mouths to feed, it means more money being brought in the long run. My dad comes from a large family. I myself am one of 4 children. The poorer you are, the larger the family to help you survive and help you come up the social ladder. But 9 times out of 10, it doesn't work that way, and people instead end up being enslaved. Gang stalking is a breeding farm. Targeting is a breeding farm. And again, guess what? I've got another family living next to me. Another mother who's a mirror image, who has agreed to become a traitor of this country. Not just a father, a mother as well, but like who has agreed to become a traitor of this country and ultimately set immigrants up to be persecuted even further. Because again, if you're a gang stalker, that's what you sign up for. So the world that I'm fighting for is a world in which parents don't have to make that choice, where parents don't end up having their children trafficked by the state. That's the type of world that I'm fighting for. And unfortunately, it means that the rights of women must take priority, which includes what? Legal, safe abortions. When you terminate a pregnancy, you are terminating a life. That's exactly what you're doing. But if our recent disdain of Donald Trump is anything to go by, you know where I'm going with this. You know where I'm going with this. And I'm going to leave it at that. So, yeah. Legal, safe abortion is a must. You know, also, sex negativity needs to go. All this, you know, shaming of hypersexuality, instead of shaming it, you need to actually confront it and confront where it comes from, because it usually comes from abuse. It usually comes from abuse. It usually comes from, you know, not even the type of abuse I've gone through. Like, it can come from even less trauma than that, but trauma plays a factor. Sex negativity needs to go. Rape culture needs to go. Safe, legal abortions need to remain, because ultimately it's the woman who passes life through her womb. She needs to be the one who is able to make the decisions. Women and trans men. Yeah, I'm going to fucking say it. Women and trans men. They're the ones bringing life into the world. They need to be able to make those decisions. I'm not even sorry. That's how it has to be, because there are too many trafficking victims in this world being violated. Trafficking is becoming more open. And it's becoming more open at a time where people are talking about rolling back abortion rights as a back door to ending safe, legal abortions completely. We can't allow this shit. We can't allow this breeding farms crap. Safe, legal abortion from the perspective of gang stalking is important, and it's always going to be important. Even without gang stalking, safe, legal abortion is important because human beings are not fucking livestock and they're not fucking slaves. So yeah, I think about my 4-month fetus, the girl in here. I think about her every day. Wonder about her every day. And I miss her because when I was pregnant, I liked being pregnant. I liked having somebody in here that, I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed having her there. I really enjoyed her company. I truly did. But now I understand everything that I've gone through. I understand this world was not for her. She did not need to be here. She did not need to be here. Not like this. Not under these circumstances. Absolutely not. I refuse to bring life into the world through trauma. I refuse. Because I've seen through the mirror images of these mothers what that can lead to. So yeah, that's it. Now I've got to go. And yeah, we'll talk soon. And to Brian Marks, thank you for showing up. I'm going to send him a message, actually. But yeah, Brian Marks, thank you for showing up. And he is absolutely right when they say gang stalkers are ultimately worse off than we are, even when it doesn't feel like it. And again, I'm fighting for a world where people don't have to do that shit. So that's it. Anyway, I love you guys. Peace and blessings. Stay strong, my fellow TIs. I love you. Take care. Bye-bye.